So my name is Gray Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Marketing for the Tallgrass Film Festival. And I'm delighted to be here today with two of the women behind the film that you've just watched, which is Asking for It. We have director Amanda Lundquist, and it is written and co-directed by Becky Scott. Thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you for having us.
So to kick it off, I've done a little bit of reading about the story, Becky, and how it came to be, but would you mind sharing with everyone a little bit about the origin of the script and what motivated you to make it?
Sure. So my initial idea came from Gamergate, which was back in like maybe 2015, around there, when all these women started getting doxxed and harassed for basically speaking up against like superfluous rape and violence in video games. And it was kind of one of the first times where people kind of realized that like the law didn't really know how to deal with online harassment, because they were like, if we don't know who these people are that are sending you threats, how can we do anything about it? Or they were like, what's Twitter? You know what I mean? So, but obviously I don't know anything about gaming. So I used to work as a journalist, and, I was working as a pop culture journalist throughout Me Too, and so I basically decided, like, I want to write a script about online harassment, about what would happen if someone sought out vigilante justice, but from the perspective of a journalist receiving that harassment. And I want to make it funny.
Yeah, I think you achieved that for sure. I think it's like it's
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Amanda, like, how did you get involved, and how did the two of you work together on this?
Well, Becky and I knew each other through mutual friends through college, and Becky was there for the first movie that I made, Pinsky, and we had actually been writing, like doing like a group screenwriting thing for a while. So like we were already in the habit of like sending each other our scripts, and she sent me the script and I read it and thought it was like the funniest thing. I was like laughing out loud on the subway reading it. And because it was like so funny, but also so angry, which really resonated with me. And that's how I got involved. I was like, you should really make this movie, and you should direct it yourself. And then she was like, I don't know. And then we kind of like landed on where we are today, and that's how it happened. Very organically, like, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. My next question actually was kind of about that balance. It's really funny and it's also really serious. I mean, it's just such a heavy topic. And then the laughs are huge, and then it gets intense again. So how challenging was it to write that balance, knowing that, it's a delicate subject?
I mean, I didn't really think about it, to be honest. I think if that's something you've to think about too hard, you probably shouldn't be attempting it. That's just my sense of humor. I mean, that's my sense of humor every single day of my life. It's pretty savage and unrelenting, because I think that we live in a really absurd world. So there was no conscious like balancing. And even when Amanda and I, and then one of our producers, Jackie Gonsalves, would get together before shooting, and sort of, obviously because it was a micro budget film, there was a lot of like, well, we can't afford to do this, so how are we gonna, do this while still honoring the story? And we ended up using a lot of jokes for that. We were just so incredibly goofy during those sessions of like script revisions, and like the googly eye joke came from one of those script revision meetings. We're like, well, we can't, like, what are we going to do? Because it's not real. It's like, if you can't do something well, make it funny, and the audience will just like run with it. So yeah, we never were like, ooh, how are we going to be sensitive about this? Because we just knew our intentions and where we stood were like so sincere.
Mm-hmm. It's
right,
funny you brought up the googly eyes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what?
Someone on our staff like asked about the googly eyes. They were like, can you find out what if there was like a meaning I missed or something? And I was like, I think it's just funny, but
nothing is more complicated than like the first, like, yeah, there's no hidden meanings here.
It was really cool. It's funny. I do have a question too. This movie has like a lot of huge names in it for being micro budget. Janine Garofalo, David Krumholtz, who was my Santa Claus first crush.
Me too.
Like, Something about Bernard, you know?
Bernard, man, no, I had like, because
He was
like
hot in that
as a
movie.
young Jewish girl, seeing a Jewish elf was like a very big moment for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So many people say that about David Krumholtz. Like, I didn't realize, so many people when they saw David like of my friends were like, oh, I had such a crush on him. And I'm like, really? That was a
Yeah.
thing?
No, that's real. That really is. That is like, I loved that movie. I saw it at least 5 times, and it was because of him. It was only because of him.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But anyway, I just was like, oh my gosh, Bernard. And then, you know, Stephanie Shu on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Like, it's just such a stacked cast in that way. And I wondered how that process went, acquiring everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because there's this idea, I think, in a lot of like but a lot of people told me a lot of things. And a lot of those things turned out to just simply not be true. Like, people would be like, well, if you want a name, you need $10,000, you know, at least to offer them. Nobody got paid anywhere near that much. We couldn't have afforded it. But we got Janine Garofalo by literally cold emailing her from IMDb Pro. And through a series of, of lucky event, and then kind of like a little bit stalking her down at a comedy show in Brooklyn to like be like, so you're doing it, right? And then David Krumholtz came through like a lucky confluence of events, because I was talking to agents, and at one conversation I had with an agent, I mentioned we wanted David Krumholtz, and we tried to get him the same way that we'd gotten Janine. And the agent who ended up representing me was like, oh, I know his agent. I'll just text her. And David Krumholtz just wants to work. Like, he loves acting. He loves what he does. So he was happy to come on board for like a, you know, half day of shooting. And then Amanda, do you want to talk about Stephanie Shu?
Stephanie Shu was a personal recommendation through a friend of one of our producers. And we really didn't have anyone for that role. And she walked in and we were all like, oh, thank God.
It was immediate.
Yeah, because we cast the film in like 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was really fast. And like a lot of us were working right while we were still casting and in our day jobs. And so it was like kind of like a wild experience going to this like shitty rehearsal space in Manhattan, bringing in all of these random actors from online, and you know, you see a lot, you know, but not a lot of it is good. So yeah, she just walked in and you're like, no, she's perfect.
And she actually shot asking for it before she even had the role on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But she had been planning to not work for like 3 months because she was in between off-Broadway Be More Chill and on-Broadway Be More Chill. So she was not going to work. And then when she received our script, she was like, I'm going to do it. So it was a lot of like fate, things falling into place, delusion, stuff like that.
That's awesome just to hear, because I do think people think it's a lot more complicated, and I guess sometimes it all just works out.
It's hard.
If you have a good script, a lot of these actors will want to do it because they're really hard to come by.
Yeah,
that's what they said. I mean, it's like even even people who are like Janine Garofalo, it's like I don't think she gets scripts like this all the time, you know?
Right. It's really well done. I think it, like you said, it's a kind of a testament to the writing too, like that people are down to be on board. I also think there's like a standout star in Irene Morales. She is just so funny, and you know, it's like deadpan and well done. And you say like you're really savage, you know, like was she written like kind of inspired by you or someone you know? Yeah.
I don't think I would have any friends if I was like that character.
Yeah, maybe.
You need friends to make movies because you're gonna lose them on the way.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, I don't know where, that character is nothing like me. I don't know where it came from, but I do think it's a funny character.
Yeah, she's really good. I just like am excited to see her in more too, because I thought she was just well done. Like her delivery was excellent.
She's amazing, and she's really, really easy and fun to work with. So
that's 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, in the same vein of cast and crew, I dove into your GoFundMe a little bit and loved all the statistics about women in film and just the importance of, you know, representation behind the camera and in front of it. And so I was wondering, you know, if you could explain to the audience why that mattered so much for this story and just in general to you guys.
Yeah, I think, well, we first and foremost just we worked with our friends. And our friends are mostly women, and it's a totally different vibe on set when you're working with friends that you trust. And however, it's not necessarily a perfect setup either, because there's all kinds of like ideas about what a director should be on set. And I think it was kind of complicated having two female directors. But so I don't want to make it seem like it's this perfect like thing where like we have all these women on set and like it's like utopia, although it can be like that too. There are good days and there are bad days. So I think for us, like it did enrich the story though. You know, having like a female AD, a female cinematographer who's also my partner. You know, like we all understood the content and the humor, and that's also why there was like a lot of really good improv too, because I think like people behind and in front of the camera knew exactly what experience we were talking about. And that just allows you to get so much more niche and so much deeper. And that is my complex answer on it, you know. Yeah. Becky, do you have anything to add to that?
Was the question, why was it this movie important to be made by mostly women?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that number one, women are the ones who are attracted to the script. It was women who read the script. There were also men who read the script and were like, how can I help? But for the most part, it was women who read the script. And again, it was like right during Me Too that this even kind of, you know, we started talking about really making it, and people were angry, and the script pressed all the right buttons in women and made them want to be a part of it. At no point were we like, let's try for 60% women. We were just like, who wants to do it? Who are we friends with? And that's what ended up happening.
Yeah. I think, Amanda, a good point too is like about just all those little moments in the movie that resonate, or even the magnification of them. Like, you know, women really relate. I think of like Jenny running home, like, and like the music is awesome, which I have a question about. But you're just like, oh, I felt that adrenaline and intensity, and like really just walking home, you know, but like you guys did a good job capturing that feeling. So on that, I guess my question is about the music. I think it sets the tone in a lot of these intense scenes and helps the audience, maybe even if they're male, understand like, you know, oh, like things are really gearing up. How did you make those choices and with music specifically?
We worked with, oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, it was scored by one of my best friends and her partner, who's also one of my good friends, and yeah, they're amazing. But sorry, Amanda, what were you going to say?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, Birch.
Yeah.
Like there was like a lot of drafting and going back and forth, and like obviously like the intimacy of like already like Becky being friends, and so like we talked a lot about like the fear of that moment too, and that was like something we were very specifically looking for, of that sensation of having like pins and needles all over your body when you're walking home in the dark and like nobody's around, you know. Which is why we had like that like super adrenaline pushing, like pumping music, and yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. Awesome. We also, like Amanda and I and some of the producers, made a Spotify playlist with like music for Michelle and Kevin, which are their names, to go by. In the movie, they're credited as Birch and Kate Francis, which is their artist names. But what was so cool about working with them was they literally lived 10 minutes away from me. The studio where they recorded everything, the studio was basically their second bedroom in Brooklyn. And like Amanda and I could basically go there, like honestly, as much as we wanted, to just sit and watch as they composed, which we didn't do all the time because they would have murdered us. But it was really awesome to be able to do that.
And they were like so motivated to do a really good job and cared so much, and really understood it, like the moments the emotional moments and like the keys and the tone that they should be in, and they just understood the content.
And one last thing about them, I can't say exactly what, but they are moving on to a huge, amazing, much larger budget project, which I'll tell you after we stop recording. But yeah, so they've really like come from asking for it, their first feature, to I just think they're going to have amazing careers. So we were really lucky to get them first when they didn't cost $200,000.
That's really cool. Yeah, it really stands out for sure. And like I said, it just adds a lot. So that's awesome to know they're just, they're friends, and they did great. Let them know. Another artistic choice I had a question about was right off the bat, the animation and the artwork in the beginning. I love that as well. Can you tell me that kind of origin as well, how you decided to do that?
We wanted like a really filthy intro. And we like shot all that footage after the movie because I can't remember like what exactly happened. Maybe
we couldn't fit it in. We just couldn't fit it in.
Yeah. And then like Nolani Williams did the animation, and Becky had lived with her. They were roommates from like a while back, right? And she has this like, she also was someone who was like really motivated by the script, and then watching the movie after we shot it, and was just like, hit the pavement trying to do like the best possible job she could. And she did. I mean, like all the detail and like the green, like molting faces, and just filthy, like, but also beautiful animation.
Yeah, so Nolani is an amazing artist and just an amazing person. And this was another friend of mine who literally I didn't even talk to about this until after we'd finished shooting. And if there's one thing I learned from the making of this movie, it is that enthusiasm like is contagious. Like it catches like wildfire. And she had done a few things, and she's a stop motion animator for the most part. And the hours she put into that, I mean, like dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, because it was so important to her to make it amazing. But yeah, I love that you're giving me an opportunity to like shout out all of the people who worked on this, because and I'm so glad you're like noticing those things, because it's true. It's honestly what makes a film. Like we're just two people. Like we had such a huge team.
Like they really worked like so hard and put so many hours in and so many drafts, and like were incredibly generous with their time
for really not a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how independent, micro budget movies get made. I mean, you look to your friends and hopefully you rise together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to not acknowledge them though, because like I think it just sets such a great tone. It's interesting that you dropped in it at the end, because it just feels like the right way to start this movie. So very cool. And also just, yeah, it's cool to hear how much collaboration goes into it with your friends. I think that's inspiring for a lot of people who have questions about making micro budget films, just to use your resources, and very cool. I had a question just kind of about your takeaway, or what you hope the takeaway is for a viewer, especially. I think that hashtag not all men that is referenced a few times is a common mentality, even in almost like they are seemingly harmless way of like, men really feel like sometimes women owe them something if they're nice, or, or if they donate to Planned Parenthood, which I loved that was included as kind of like, kind of stacking the deck as this guy's like a nice guy. So what do you think, I guess, what someone watching who maybe isn't fully convinced, I guess, that, or who's more on the side of not all men, how would you hope what would you hope they learned from this film?
Well, I hope they don't become homicidal. I don't know. Yeah, like we definitely didn't think much about them when we
Yeah, I guess.
We were kind of just had like a fuck 'em mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, I mean, wouldn't it be great if like some of these men that do feel hashtag not all men like would have watched this film, and you can just imagine them like on their couch like accidentally chuckling at some of the jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would really be delightful, and I hope that happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that we really set out to change any minds with this movie. I think that humor has an incredible power, maybe for minds that are not yet set. Yeah. So, but we do joke sometimes that the demographic we were aiming for was MRA people.
Yeah. It's scary that that they exist, but yeah, I think it is hard to change those minds. I guess like thinking of like men watching it and being like, wow, I didn't realize like how much weight your words have. I hope people know that, but in this digital world, it's kind of like, I don't think people understand that message gets to a real person, especially a journalist, and then the toll it can take. So
yeah, I think also like a lot of movies right now try really hard to like send a message and to have teachable moments, and I hate that. I hate that in cinema. I think it makes me cringe anytime, and it's not just like quote unquote feminist movies or whatever, but anytime any movie I can feel the creators wanting me to take something in particular away from it, I get extremely defensive. And I feel like, Amanda, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do that.
You don't want to be condescended to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand that. I definitely like an activist minded film. But I that like wants to kind of like change the world. I'm all about that. But I also think like there's something to be said for films that are made for the people who have the experience, and that they're not trying to twist themselves into teaching anybody else. Like just seeing, like we very, very consciously were like, we're angry. We want to see that experience. We want other women to watch the film and be like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel, and experience some sort of like catharsis through the narrative that they can relate to. That's of course like heightened and like a little bit absurdist. But we really just made it for ourselves.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think another like relatable thing that is just like that Janine Garofalo and like the older feminist like liberal boss who's kind of just like doesn't realize how like removed they are from reality. I guess I thought that was another like just a relatable thing that's cool to see, because you're like, ugh, I definitely know that person and they're just not self-aware. So it was really cool. I think that was another good like thread in the film.
Yeah, that role was kind of inspired by a boss that I had, who like, she wasn't a bad person. Like, and that's the thing, like these people are not bad people, but like journalism was evolving around her, and the reality was that in order to stay in the game, this digital publication had to rely on clicks, because that was the business model had fallen into. And yet she couldn't like really bring herself to admit that was the case, that it did rely on clicks. And then also she kind of liked to say like, I'm an advocate for women, and I think in ways she was, but also the reality was that in the newsroom there was a huge disparity between the salaries of the men and the women. I mean, I was making like $30,000 less than a guy who was not like, in terms of clicks, not doing that much better, but like was probably maybe even doing worse than me. Anyway, this is just, but Janine Garofalo really came in, and I had kind of made that character very heightened in the original script. And Janine Garofalo came in and was like wanting to inject her with a little bit more empathy and humanity. And at first, Amanda and I like bristled a little bit against that. And then once we kind of talked to Janine more, we actually, I mean, I think it ended up making the character almost better. What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, because like an actor needs to believe what they're saying and speak from the perspective of the character honestly. And it was really great. Like she came and she came to Brooklyn and from Manhattan, and she met us at a coffee shop, and she had just like all of these notes and was like really passionate about like these tweaks and these questions and these, you know, and it was like super fun working for her. But also to like tack on to the boss thing, like when I read the script the first time, I was working at NBC, and I also had a boss that was like this, like, you know, like kind of like baby boomer age, like had like come up in like a really sexist industry and was like also severely underpaying me as well. Like I remember I was training a guy who was like making way more money than I was. And then like it's just like so many of us have this experience. It's so common that and it's also probably like the most hurtful part of being like a woman in her profession is like the people who you look to like lift you up oftentimes don't really want to, which is like, yeah, that's like another part of like this whole gender and media conversation that I feel like it's like so much targeted towards men, but then like how women view themselves and each other also needs to be evaluated. And that I would like to have that happen more, I think. And that's also what I really appreciate about the script too, was like the Betty Friedan joke. Like I think that like really killed me, because I was like, this like one sentence gets to the whole problem. You know?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, like generational problem between women. Yeah.
But then it was Janine's idea to add the Betty Friedan was born in 1920.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Janine came in with like this, she was like, but you don't understand Cheryl. Cheryl was born in the 1950s or 60s. She was like, you know, it was just a joy to have, honestly, the perspective of a 50-year-old woman who, you know, was a liberal progressive herself and had opinions. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're literally.
I don't know if you guys saw Miss America. Did either of you see it?
Is the documentary?
No, I know which documentary. Yeah, so it's the, what's her name?
Oh, Kate Blanchett.
Yes.
Schlafly.
Phyllis Schlafly
Yeah.
and Gloria Steinem, and there's a Betty Friedan character. It was really interesting. Like they actually addressed this also in Miss America, and like Gloria Steinem couldn't stand her because like there was this like whole dynamic of like new feminists and like old school feminists, and she was like sort of homophobic. So it's like every generation of feminists has to negotiate with the past generation. I thought it was like a really wonderful series.
Cool. Yeah, I need to watch that still, but it is interesting, that generational divide. I just wanted to shout out another running joke that was in there that I love how you wrap it up, is the Sally Mae calls that keep happening. Definitely block those calls on my own phone and fantasize about telling them, like, even if I'm super rich, sorry. So I just, you know, I don't know, it's just another relatable piece that you did really well. So I just wanted to shout that out.
That role was actually played by my roommate at the time, whose name is Brett Davis. And we literally had, like, we didn't have anyone to play that part because we initially had one of the producers playing it. But we wanted something a little bit more like, it just wasn't the right fit. So he's a comedian. So we literally like one day said, can you come in and record this in an attic? And he did that. But yeah, it's the truth.
Yeah, you tackled a lot, because that was like, oh, that's another just like total relate. Yeah, very cool. I don't want to be a bummer, but I want to talk a little bit about, you know, releasing your film in this pandemic, because I actually did listen to the Dear Nana of like, you were just at Cinequest. And so like, I know, heard a little bit.
You went deep.
I did go deep.
A long time ago.
I'm really thorough. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm very impressed, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you. But I just know, like, I just feel bad as a festival, you know, it's sad that we have to do this remotely, and we love having filmmakers here and seeing the full theater. So just like, how has that, made your experience different, or just, I don't know, how's it even affected your creativity, just being home more and promoting this film?
Amanda?
Well, in some ways it's been better because we ended up going to Fuse TV, which brought the movie to a lot more eyeballs, and that's not something that would have happened if we went through traditional small scale theatrical distribution. So it's not like the way a film like ours would be distributed if it wasn't a pandemic would be that fantastic either. Like, the system is crap. Mm-hmm. However, the only real downside is that we can't go to great festivals like yours and meet other filmmakers and film lovers and have real conversations with them over, wine, till 3 a.m. Like, it sucks because like this whole time, like I was telling Becky, like, oh, the festivals are just the most fun. And like, you just get to nerd out. And yeah, that part really is missing. But at the very least, we've been able to like be seen by a lot of people online and kind of skirt this shitty distribution platform that I think needs to be broken anyway, of like going to a festival looking for a distributor who only half cares about your movie, and especially if you're like an ultra low budget. So it's like been a real mixed bag. And in terms of creativity, I don't know, I wasn't feeling creative at all like the first few months of this. So I think I've only recently in the last month got back into like any kind of creative practice, like writing and even had like ideas. So yeah. I was like in a mourning process for most of spring. So
I feel like we got so lucky with the movie, which is why I say like that podcast. First of all, whenever I do Dear Nana, I speak as if no one is listening.
I know. I'm sorry that I don't mean to freak you out.
Not because I know that like a lot of Irene's listeners are like, in the Brooklyn comedy scene and stuff like that. But I'm never like thinking, I'm sure I'll lose that habit when something bad happens. But I think we got incredibly lucky. Like, Fuse came out of left field. They'd seen the movie at CineQuest. And because we got onto Fuse, the movie has been seen by thousands and thousands more people than ever would have seen it, even if we had, gotten into theaters in New York and LA, which like I think for a lot of independent filmmakers is like the thing. So we were thrilled with that. And I mean, it's now going to be on streaming so that everybody can see it. So I personally feel very lucky. And like Amanda said, like the worst part is that we don't get to go to all these places. But in terms of how many people saw the film, I think a lot of people did and are still. And then in terms of creativity, I feel very lucky because I actually am now on the second draft of a script I've just finished and working on. And I'm in a fellowship that was supposed to be in person, but now is completely virtual with the WGA and Film Nation. So that's given me like a lot of structure. Mm-hmm. But I think if I didn't have that structure, who knows what would happen? I'd be floating. It's hard right now to be a creative.
Mm-hmm. Kind of segues into my last question about you guys, just like what's next for each of you professionally, or what are you working on?
So I'm doing the fellowship, and the hope is that, the idea is that all of the fellows write scripts and, you hopefully go into development with them, although who knows? My bet would be most of the scripts nothing will happen. And so we just kind of trudge along and walk through every door that opens. I feel like there are still open doors for me and I'm just still going to keep walking straight through them. So we'll see.
Awesome.
I have a couple small commercials that I'm shooting this fall, so that's good. Normally I like get really nervous with that question because I'm like, nothing, there's no future. But there's like some stuff cooking, and I'm writing a new script, and I actually just started training to become an intimacy coordinator, which I don't know if you know what that is.
Did you say intimacy coordinator?
Yeah.
I think, but can you explain?
Yeah, it's all about so like Hollywood and larger budget productions are now, after the Me Too era, hiring people to come on set and coordinate and choreograph and kind of liaise sex scenes, so that the actors feel like everything is above board, and negotiating with the crew and who's there, and where the hand gets placed and all these things, which kind of gets like to the core of what I love about directing anyway, which is like working with actors and kind of like really getting into the story in the moment. So I'm doing that right now, and I think like it's something I'm looking forward to having more structure with. It's also online, which is like really like a wild way to learn how to choreograph sex scenes, but
yeah, no kidding.
over Zoom. But
awesome.
yeah, like HBO is now like they've promised like all of their shows are going to be with intimacy coordinators. I don't know if you guys saw The Deuce, but like the second season of that show, it's all dealing with the porn industry in like 1970s New York, and there's like a ton of sex scenes. So like obviously, like in the past, Hollywood has had like a huge problem with doing that consensually and effectively and safely. So yeah, this industry is changing. It's cool. Yeah. It's really, really cool.
Before it was just like Harvey Weinstein being like, can we do that scene again, except all the women are naked this time?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's a cool, it's good that they'll have that role. It's awesome. Last question for real is just, where can we find Asking for It Next? I know you mentioned streaming, and just, when can we find that online?
Yeah, so it actually just came out on Amazon Prime. Awesome. It's still playing on Fuse. It's actually playing tomorrow, but this probably won't be out by tomorrow, but October 2nd at 10 p.m. is the next Fuse showing. No one has Friday night plans anyway. So if you've got cable, watch it. Yeah, right, Amanda? Anywhere else?
Amazon Prime, Woodstock. It's still going on the festival circuit. It's going to show at Tallgrass, and also Santa Fe Independent Film Festival, which kind of seems like a kindred spirit to Tallgrass. I don't know. And it'll be at Woodstock, and it is also on Tubi and Pluto, like all of those sort of like weird, And
CineQuest is having another.
And CineQuest, yes. CineQuest is having another. It's also going to be on another streaming platform that we haven't been able to announce yet, but so it's going to be widely available, but you could watch it now on Amazon Prime or
Tallgrass.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for taking your time to talk to me today. And if you are tuning in and you'd like to learn more about the film, you can head to tallgrassfilm.org. Definitely make sure to vote for our audience award. And thank you both again.
Thank you
so much.